Welcome to SBME Interfaces. Our goal with this show is to introduce you to the people that interface with biomedical engineering, from students and faculty to staff and industry, and everyone in between. BME is a broad field that encompasses so many different perspectives, journeys, skill sets, and backgrounds, and we are excited to share them all with you.
Today we're interfacing with Maryam Tayyab and Emily Bliven. Emily hails from the island of Alameda, California, and studied mechanical engineering in her undergrad and then biomedical engineering in her master's at the University of Portland in Oregon. She worked in industry for a couple of years before moving to UBC to pursue her PhD. Her research under the supervision of Peter Krypton focused on strengthening the femur with an orthopedic implant to prevent fractures. She's currently the social sports coordinator for the Biomedical Engineering Graduate Association, BMEGA. Maryam is pursuing her master's with Roger Tam. Her research on developing machine learning methods to predict clinical outcomes in populations with neurological disorders like MS. She holds a bachelor's in medical imaging from the University of Bradford and a bachelor's in electrical engineering from the University of Punjab. She is the president, and I believe outgoing president of BMEGA and co-chair of BMEGA REDI subcommittee, as well as she sits on the school's REDI committee as well. In her free time, she loves to hike and explore Vancouver. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I wanted to start off with, with these last rather insane 15 months, and what kind of impact this pandemic has had on you, whether it's your research or even your personal lives. And we'll start with you, Maryam.
I think that my relationship with pandemic has been bittersweet because it has affected all of us, including me, in terms of finding our new normals, finding motivation to keep making progress on research. But sweet in that I had the chance to meet a lot of people. I know that not many people will be able to say that they met new people during pandemic, but I did. And then I moved a lot of places during pandemic, and working from home allowed me to do that. So I changed 2 apartments. I visited Pakistan. I visited Portland. I found that really interesting that Emily is from Portland. So I think being able to work from home allowed me to do that, but also it blurred the boundaries between work, study, leisure time, and finding time for personal connection. So yeah, that's pretty much sums it up.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Emily?
I didn't know you went to Portland, Maryam. That's awesome. Yeah, I'd say a big thing, it was just a big forced adaptation. And like in my research and my life, just becoming very comfortable with uncertainty was a big thing. And I think especially as engineers, like we like things to be defined and certain. And when, we don't know when we can see our families or travel or do any of those things, we have no choice but to get used to that. And that kind of tailored into my PhD. So like getting better at, if things were uncertain, I had to set my own milestones that were certain and kind of like take on that management on my own without like being in the lab chatting with people and seeing my supervisor face to face. But yeah, like talking to others that are going through the same thing helped a lot. So.
Sure. And so can you both tell us a little bit about BMEGA? I mean, it's evolved since the school started to be a part of the BME program before, and some of the initiatives you've either worked on this year or planning for the upcoming year. Either of you, any of you could go.
Well, I think I'll start because I think I know less, and then you can add on. I started last year, and so I've only been on BMEGA during the pandemic, so I only know it as virtual. And yeah, it's just about providing resources and a community for biomedical engineering grad students. We had to be quite creative this year, but we had a few different STEM outreach opportunities, as well as little trivias and kind of welcome barbecues that were held online. And so I think we just want it to be a place where BMEG's grad students feel like they can come to for support, whether it's like academically or socially. And maybe Maryam can talk a little bit more about what it's like when it's not virtual and what's planned for next year.
Yeah, so I've been involved with BMEGA twice. Before I was with BMEGA in the capacity of a secretary, and that was before pandemic. So the experience was a lot different. I was part of all these great events where we wanted the graduate students to be involved. We had a pretty successful industry night. We had 2 barbecues. There was a very successfully run mentorship program as well. Having seen it from both sides of pandemic, the experience post-pandemic was quite different. Everything was virtual. It was a bit challenging to provide the opportunities where the students will feel motivated to get involved because of the Zoom fatigue. I had the chance to talk to a lot of students who were continuing students with SBME, and they had trouble finding the motivation to sign up online once more. But even during that craziness, we were lucky enough to find moments where we had the 3 events that Emily mentioned. And we continue to strive to provide these opportunities where the BMEGA students might find time to just, just sign up and chat with other BME students who are struggling through pandemic. So that was great. In the upcoming year, we have had elections. Today was a last day of voting. So pretty soon we'll be bringing the new BMEGA team on board and handing it over to them. The great news is that we have moved on to in-person teaching come fall. So hopefully that will change a lot. But having seen it from both sides, I would say the one thing that I really missed was getting together in a room with a bunch of people and then really just laughing and talking it out. Yeah.
It's good. So out of curiosity, I mean, a lot of options available to you both. What drew you to biomedical engineering for graduate school? And in particular, what excites you about the field? And we'll start with you, Emily.
What drew me to it, I didn't know, like back when I first started studying engineering, they didn't have any biomedical engineering at my school yet. It was kind of like I could get a minor in biology or I could take some courses. I tore my ACL playing soccer when I was a teenager. And the fact that they could repair my knee by putting a metal screw into it was really, like, the simplicity of that was really fascinating to me. And I just get really encouraged, I think, by the ability to apply mechanical principles to like the super complex physiological system of the body. And I had a lot of great mentors that introduced me to different fields of research when I was in undergrad, and kind of allowed me to explore more in those areas. You asked what drew me to it and what excites me about it. I guess the thing that I like most about my work in biomedical engineering is the diversity of it in like the day-to-day activities, like and that extends to collaboration too. So whether it's like working with my hands or doing stuff with computer models or meeting with surgeons or meeting with machinists or meeting with all sorts of people, that's probably the most exciting part with me, and the part that involves real people too.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Maryam?
So I also didn't know about the specialized discipline of biomedical engineering back in the day. I was just doing electrical engineering, and I developed interest in diagnostic imaging. And that was also based on a personal experience. Someone in my family was diagnosed with breast cancer. And as we went through the various stages of prognostic workup, I realized how important imaging was, and I just started delving deeper into it. And that led me to my current research. Well, not directly, but yeah, just the focus of improving the methods for diagnosis. So, and that's what excites me, just the possibility of creating real impact and how we can touch the lives and the impact and the long-term impact that you stand to create. That continues to impress me and motivate me and excite me, and keeps me on my path.
Something we talked about a little bit. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just like, I appreciate that a lot, Maryam, because what I always told myself was like, okay, I know I can do the math part, And then the part that keeps me passionate is the benevolence and like the people oriented part. So.
Mm-hmm. What I love about the field is almost every biomedical engineer I've spoken to, they talk about how they're so surprised that their impact is immediate. Like this isn't something that you have to like really wait into the future. Like, no, you can actually make a difference in a patient's life right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool.
Both well said. So what's been the biggest surprise for you being at UBC and being in the School of Biomedical Engineering? Maryam, we'll start.
I think the biggest surprise for me was just a transition from undergrad to graduate studies, and then realizing that there's so many facets to your student life, and then there's life inside of academia and then outside of it. And then because I'm not from Vancouver, so there was that component of adapting in a new environment and just coming up to speed with the social norms. Nothing really eye-opening or earth-shattering, but yeah, just coming to terms with the new way of adulting was really the surprise. That took a lot of time.
Emily,
Yes.
what about you?
Student adulting is different than like adulting. I feel like, I mean, the beauty, like the natural beauty of UBC and the area was not a surprise, but it's really nice. But I think like, because I was working for a little bit before going back to school, going back into academia, and honestly, this is like my first experience in proper academia. Being immersed in that was just the day-to-day of that was something I wasn't used to, and like the autonomy that we have as grad students in, especially during the pandemic when that's heightened. But it's like, it's something I had to get comfortable with, was just being in charge of what I'm working on for days on end, you know what I mean? And I can seek guidance when I ask for it, but yeah. And then I think just like the very specific culture that exists in academia, and forgetting that like when I talk to my parents or other people that aren't in it, I have to like explain to them like why something like candidacy, what it is and why it's important, and getting out of that bubble every so often is good.
Great.
I'd like to add one more thing. The autonomy that we have on our time, and then how quickly it can go sideways. That's really surprising.
Yeah.
But if you draw a graph of autonomy in grad school, it's related to your supervisor's characteristics. Maybe I can dig a little deep in this question, because we always like to ask this. I guess for both of you, what's special to you about the School of BME? Because we're a new entity and the school itself.
Yeah.
So, Emily, what do you like about it, and what excites you?
Yeah. What do I like about it? I like that I'm constantly learning. Like I guess the number one thing that the SBME has been for me is engaging. Like there's constant engagement with people from different labs and different fields. And I'm constantly trying to wrap my head around new things that my friends are doing or people from fellow labs are doing. And it seems like SBME really tries to weave those together and like present them in the seminar series and in other ways, which is really nice. So like that cohesiveness is nice. And then also I guess just the flexibility of a newer program where they seek feedback from students and like want to modulate and change because of that is nice to see as well. So.
You, Maryam?
So I completely agree with Emily, and that was going to be my answer if I were to answer first. I love the engagement that the SBME faculty and program members always strive to have with the students. I love that. I love and I feel that my opinion matters, and every so often the program seeks it, and I feel like I'm being heard, and my opinion will create a difference. That is something that really stands out for me. Other than that, I love the diversity that the program has to offer, and all the different research clusters and all these exciting things that everyone else is doing. I'm also like, I feel like I'm always learning, always asking, and always learning new things. And it's really nice that there's a seminar series that helps us orient ourselves in position to what everyone else is doing. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, also I think I forgot, I was thinking of like purely academics, but what's been really refreshing is more, especially with like the REDI committee, which I'm not involved in, but like having more socially oriented talks on like anti-racism and activism that I think it's easy to think of as separate from STEM or separate from biomedical engineering, but it's actually like very intertwined, and it's cool. It's really nice to see a progressive program that tries to incorporate those values.
That's wonderful to hear. That means we're doing our job pretty well right now. So Emily, just at a high level, can you talk a little bit about your research and, more importantly, how you see its potential for the future?
Yeah. It's nice to talk about it at a high level, because usually I try and like simplify it a little bit. So my research involves preventing hip fracture, which is a relatively common and very dangerous injury. And the most common way it happens is when an elderly person will fall directly to the side. And a previous researcher in our lab developed a machine that simulates a sideways fall with a cadaveric specimen. And it's able to induce hip fracture in a way that's very realistic with how it happens in real life. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this machine and a corresponding computer model to a finite element model to assess the potential that an orthopedic implant has to strengthen the femur and prevent fracture. So the main chunk of my research is designing an orthopedic implant or method that goes in the intramedullary space at the proximal femur and alters the mechanical structure and strengthens it enough to kind of make up for that missing osteoporotic bone to prevent or lessen the severity of fracture. And we get to use this dual experimental and computational method that was previously developed to evaluate it. And then another minor chunk of my research is adding high-speed X-ray to this fall simulator. So like adding an additional analysis method that will allow us, like in order to prevent fracture, we have to understand the biomechanics of it. And nobody has imaged hip fracture as it occurs with an X-ray system when it's occurring in a realistic way. And because this setup that we have is so realistic, I think that being able to capture the fracture as it's happening with high-speed X-ray will shed a lot of light in certain phenomena that correlate to an implant's potential to prevent it from happening.
We had Peter Krypton present to the staff. We do this high-level lay research, and he showed some of the X-rays they've done with the other model they have for the neck.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But really exciting stuff you guys are all working on.
Yeah, it's cool. Thanks.
So Maryam, what drew you to the area of sort of, computation, machine learning, and applications in health? You mentioned imaging and health. You mentioned a little bit personal history, but working with Roger and the stuff you do, talk to that at a high level for us.
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned that I was interested in diagnostic imaging and specifically interested in improving the capacity of diagnostic imaging for early detection of various diseases. That is exactly what I'm doing in Roger Tam's lab with a different angle. So I'm approaching it from a different angle in that I'm not changing the way an organ system is imaged, but I'm changing the way you can use the information from that diagnostic machine to actually diagnose something that's going to happen in a future time. More specifically, in my lab, we have a focus on multiple sclerosis, which is a neurodegenerative disease that does not have a cure. And also, it's idiopathic in that there's no reason why someone will develop multiple sclerosis. And because there's a lot yet to be discovered about multiple sclerosis, one cannot predict how the disease will evolve over time. So what my research does is it develops a machine learning algorithm that is able to look at the brain MRIs from individuals who have had first episode of multiple sclerosis. And by first episode, I mean has displayed the very initial symptoms that are indicated that a person will go on to develop a full-blown multiple sclerosis. So from that very early stage where they have shown symptoms, we use MRI to monitor and screen their brains, and my algorithm takes that raw data and learns from all these signs that may be not visible to the naked eye, and predict that how likely is it for this individual to develop a future attack, for example, within the next 2 years. We incorporate data from MRI as well as other factors like that are clinical and demographic factors that may be risk factors. And then how that helps is that once we're able to predict that an individual is at a higher risk of developing future attacks, the physician can then more proactively monitor that individual or start a proactive treatment that may help reduce the chances of them developing a future attack and preserve their quality of life for longer. The long-term impact will be such approaches are being developed for various neurological diseases, so they can be a very helpful tool set for the clinicians to really, filter out those individuals that will benefit from a proactive treatment, and then just doing their best to preserve their quality of life better, because many of these diseases don't really have a cure, and early diagnosis and proactive treatment is the way to preserve the quality of life.
So we'll go. We'll zoom out a little bit. The both of you, what advice would you have to new grad students coming into the BME program at UBC? And we can start with you, Emily.
New grad students in SBME. Well, join BMEGA, of course. That's my first.
Okay.
Shameless promotion of BMEGA. I would say don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's from, if you don't know something, try a little bit first, but don't be afraid to ask for help from your supervisor, from your colleagues. People are more willing to help you than you think, and I think it can be quite intimidating and make you feel like you don't know anything, but and then also in terms of mental health resources, if that's something that's occurring, don't be afraid to ask for help for that either. And then also to set good boundaries. So I find that I can work better when I work less sometimes. And I think that's something that's a good practice to have as well.
Good advice. How about you, Maryam?
I would say that congratulations for joining such an amazing program. I would advise for the new grad students to just come with an open mind. There are a lot of surprises and a lot of things that you will learn, both academically and outside of academia. I would say enjoy all of those learning curves. Some are going to be very steep, but others you're going to enjoy more. So enjoy that, and then try to not get caught up in just making progress academically inside of a classroom or in your lab. There is so much more that will constitute your student experience. School of Biomedical Engineering has a lot of opportunities to get involved. Make use of them. Join BMEGA, and just enjoy the ride. And then I will definitely reinforce on Emily's advice that ask for help. You'll be surprised how helpful and how willing people are to offer it. So when in doubt, just talk to someone. Your PIs are there to make sure that you have a successful program. And then the lab members are pretty helpful too. So yeah, you'll find a lot of people that you can go to seek some help. Make sure you use that.
Great advice, both. So almost at times, so we'll ask some more lighthearted questions. Sorry, Maryam, as a grad student, actually, you're both very busy. What do you do to recharge?
I binge watch seasons of Netflix because some days and I'm guilty of that because I spend a lot of time in front of a screen for my programming and stuff. So I feel like I'm not doing my body good when I am yet again looking at another screen. But yeah, aside from that, I try to squeeze in workouts. I think that really helps me both mentally and physically. And then I go out. I think nature walks are really a good way to clear your head and then gain a little perspective. because one can develop a, I don't know what's the word for it, but a very narrow tunnel vision where you kind of focus on the wrong things obsessively. So just taking a step back helps.
And you, Emily?
Yeah, some of those things as well, definitely. And talking to friends helps as well. Like, not being from Vancouver, there's a lot of people that I connect with on the phone. And so that's talking to them is a good way to kind of zoom out from what I'm currently doing. And then having a mindfulness practice has been really valuable as well. I don't know what word if you use decompress, but
Recharge.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Nature walks as well. So.
Great.
Yeah, exercise and meditation was a big one for me, especially these last 15 months. All right, so last question then for the both of you. Are there any particular initiatives, projects, or endeavors that you're overseeing right now? They can be in your research or in your personal life that you're really, really excited about and you think we all should get excited about too. And we'll start with you, Emily.
Well, I'm running a marathon with two of my friends, so that's really exciting. We're like designing our own and running it on our own. So you should be excited about that, so that I can be more excited about it. But we're almost done. It's next weekend. So, and then also something that our lab has been doing for almost a year now has been having monthly shutdown STEM talks. And so it's just a space in our lab to discuss inclusion and diversity and anti-racism, and kind of try and make that an opt-in theme. And it was a little rocky at first, just because we had the intention to do it and we didn't really know what we were doing, but we've had more structure and good participation, and I'm really excited about that, because I think it's not like being lab initiated, I think is less common. So
absolutely. And how about you, Maryam?
So we just started the student chapter of Respect, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion subcommittee. And I'm really excited about that, because that just allows us to connect with the students and get the feedback that will shape the way that we approach these issues on the school level. So I'm one of the co-chairs, and I'm really excited about starting this. We're just getting started, and I would encourage more students to get involved and come forward if they have any opinions, feedbacks, concerns that they would like for someone to discuss with. I want others to be excited about it as well, because I feel that that's a step in the right direction. So, yeah.
Sounds great. You're both keeping busy, both in the lab and outside. That's wonderful to see. So thank you both. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Wish you all the best in your graduate degree work and beyond. And thanks for tooting our horn that SBM is a good place to be. That's always good to hear. So all the best.
Thank you.
The pleasure's all ours.
Yeah, thanks for having us.